The NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by EdgeBoost. The bank can build for better. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet with the promo code SGPN. Get a $25 deposit match bonus. And welcome, everybody, to the NBA Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Saturday, May 10th, around 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to preview the Sunday games, the two games there. If you want the thoughts on the Saturday games, check out the episode before this one to keep that in mind. But it's a night show, getting ready for Sunday. And a reminder, by the way, if you have not done so already, it is Mother's Day tomorrow. To get your shopping done. Just a reminder there if you forgot. Either way, though, I'm your host of the episode, Scott Reichel, joining Gamble Lonte Smith together. We're going to break down the two games for the Sunday card. Lonte, I'll ask you, first of all, how was your Friday? And second of all, how's your Saturday going?
Friday was pretty good, man. Got to the window with some winners. I think we got there with some winners on baseball as well. Today was pretty good, man. I mean, props were really good. I was 4 points away from cashing a 7-1 dog that I gave out yesterday, but hit the lock. So I think that was good. I think we both swept the lock and dog on the previous show that we did together. So that was pretty nice. So yeah, man, I'm feeling good. Ready for tonight's action, and then we'll roll it over with some winners for tomorrow. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're kind of underselling just how good we actually did on the last episode. So I ended up sweeping the lock and dog. I believe you did too. I had Mobley over half a steal. He had like 3. Had Halliburton under 8.5 assists at plus 140. He never showed up, so that was definitely easy. But we also had the underdog entry.
Yeah.
We had an underdog entry at about 6-1.
Yeah.
Had Wiggins higher 5.5 points, Hunter lower 12.5 points, and Joker higher 13.5 rebounds. So once again, a perfect episode for us. Swept everything, including the underdog, and we'll try to keep it rolling here for the games on Sunday. I do want to ask you, though, starting off with the recap, it's kind of a weird segment because we have 2 days to recap, technically day and a half, because there was one game completed already today. Starting off with the games that we ended up seeing on Friday, you saw the Nuggets, who ended up surviving and beating the Thunder in overtime. Thunder scored a grand total of 2 points in overtime as Denver came back and won. Felt like the Thunder were off to what looked like early on it was going to be a statement performance from OKC, but then Denver kind of closed the gap in the first half. Game was an absolute war towards the end. It was ugly, but OKC's offense self-destructed down the stretch. Jalen Williams was great, and yet Shea kept chucking up bricks in isolation to end regulation and throughout overtime, and Denver eventually did get the job done. Gordon with another massive three-pointer, and then you saw Porter Jr. have a great game. He hit the big three-pointer early on in overtime to really just, I don't want to say hit the dagger because there's still a lot of time left, but that definitely, I'd say, was a huge shot in terms of just momentum, and the Nuggets rolled with it as they outscored the Thunder 11-2. So first things first, I have a couple of things to talk about with Dagnall, but I'll get into that in a second. I just want your overall thoughts on this game in general, because Denver looked, I don't want to say down and out early, but it didn't look great for the first 5-6 minutes, and then eventually Denver settled in, and they got the job done there. I'm going to ask you right now, because we've seen 2 games so far in the series where Denver was able to simply put out clutch the Thunder, and a team that won 68 games the regular season apparently has no idea how to close out close games. Have you noticed the same thing with me, or am I overreacting a bit more?
I mean, I wouldn't say overreaction because they've showed it twice down the stretch in 3 games, but I'm trying to figure out how to hold some of the takes for the game and then give out. Well, I'll say this. I'll say 2 things. One thing is it's clear that OKC is the more superior team, and that's through all 3 games. Obviously, they lost 2 of those, but this could easily be 3-0. Now, if you want to give Denver the last game, fine, we can have a discussion. But OKC was not playing well, particularly, and they were still within realm of finishing off that game, and they had plenty of chances to do so. They were in a bonus. I think my notes, it's like 6 to 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They did no attacking. They got ISO heavy, similar to what we saw with Boston and how they blew their leads. They had several chances to kind of put the distance between themselves, and they just didn't do it. And I don't attribute that to youth per se, like some people would. I mean, it just wasn't good basketball by them. I don't think it had anything to do with youth. Maybe some coaching things here and there, but I thought that was big. Not being able to capitalize on being in a bonus for that long and not getting to the free throw line where you shoot the ball well from the free throw line. I thought Dort was not good, especially defensively. Murray pretty much had his way.
He was terrible the entire night on both sides
Yeah,
of the ball.
Murray had his way with him defensively. But to me, I mean, it kind of worked out how I thought it would. I mean, I thought OKC would win. Don't get me wrong, but I thought this would be the best. I think this game 3 was the best the Nuggets can play. I think that is the actual like ceiling of their performances. I don't think. I mean, of course, not the Joker, but as far as a team, because you got what like 80 plus points from Porter, Aaron Gordon, and Jamal Murray. Like, so I don't know if they can play as good going forward. But again, the Thunder were right there to take that game. I mean, they lose Aaron Gordon on a 3 for the second time in a row. Well, not in a row, but for the second time in 3 games. So that was concerning. But overall, I mean, I'm not worried about the Thunder. I think this is a good barometer for them moving forward, and I think they'll win game. I know we'll get to it, but I think they win game 4 and 5, and everybody will have this in afterthought.
Yeah, so going into the series, I did pick OKC in 6. I thought I was going to give Denver a couple of close games, one Joker masterclass to steal a game. We saw that in game 1. The problem I have with OKC, and it's why we talked about the teams that were actually facing a deficit early on, when there were a lot of just pandemonium going on with the Cavaliers, the Celtics, and the Thunder. And I was basically asking the question, which team should panic more, the Celtics or the Thunder, based on what happened in game 1? And I said the Thunder. Now, the Celtics went down 2-0. Thunder did win game 2 by about 90 points. But I thought the Celtics were without a doubt the better team. And now Cat might have a broken finger. We'll see what happens there. We'll get into that game in a second. But point is, my concern with the my concern with the Celtics was just them taking really dumb shots in the fourth quarter when they're clearly the better team. The issue I have with OKC is that Shea has just not been that efficient for the entire postseason. And I remember it was brought up, I think it was by Zach Lowe, I think on his podcast. He talked about how there's a difference in separation you get in the regular season compared to the playoffs when it comes to isolation with the, I say, physicality that's allowed by defenders. And I really had not focused on that until I actually, I'd say, heard at that point. And then I've been noticing it ever since, because you saw Shea try to ISO on Brown at the end of regulation, tried to foul bait at the end of regulation. But the point is, Brown has been physical with them, and the refs aren't calling it. And the fact that Shea gets so much separation in the regular season, and you compare it to now, that's one, I'd say, glaring thing that I've noticed once it was brought to my attention. The fact that the physicality is being allowed, and you're allowed to be a little bit more handsy, not full hand check, but still, Shea's creating significantly less separation. And as a result, when he's settling for these mid-range jumpers or even these three-pointers, he just doesn't have as much space as normal. And that's why these shots he's taking are a lot more difficult than they were in the regular season. And I feel like I mentioned this in game 1. I just hate the way they run crunch time offense. They load up on Shea. They basically will dare anybody else to beat them. J-Dub was playing really well. He had 30-plus points. And yet you knew at the end of the game, right or wrong, OKC was going to live or die by their best player. And Shea was horrific at the end of regulation, and he had no stats in overtime. So my concern with OKC, and why I did give Denver a bigger upset chance than the Knicks at the time, was because I did like Denver's late-game offense in comparison to OKC's, and I did think the experience would matter when you're looking at a Thunder team that right now looks extremely inexperienced in these big spots. And I feel like that has been an issue not even just with the players. With Daigneault, I'll segue into that. I thought it was embarrassing that Daigneault kept both timeouts on the final possession of regulation when you're guaranteed 2 timeouts in overtime. It's by definition a free timeout. You have 2 free timeouts. You end up getting your timeouts replenished into overtime. And your offense was horrible down the stretch. And yet he didn't burn a timeout to at least draw something up. I thought that was insane coaching malpractice. Now, there are different schools of belief. Some coaches, like Mazzulla, for example, and like Daigneault, like to play in the flow of the game. They will let their players create their own offense, don't let the defense get a chance to set up, and we're going to go with a final possession without burning a timeout. I hate that philosophy. I'm a big fan of actually calling something, because more often than not, every late game play is the exact same. Your best player is going to get the ball with, I'd say, 15 to 10 seconds left, stand at half court, do basically nothing, and then at 5 seconds, fine, it's time for me to make an actual move. And it's a waste. It's a complete waste, because you have 4 guys around the court, sometimes 3 if you want to run a pick and roll. But most part, 3 or 4 guys just stand around the perimeter knowing they're not going to get the ball. and the defense will load up, and you'll get a really bad fadeaway jumper, basically, at the end of regulation every time. And I'd rather see a coach draw something up on the weak side, maybe get some type of secondary action going for you. And Dagnall just didn't do it. Dagnall just said, listen, we're not burning any timeouts. Shea, who's been terrible the entire game, basically, is going to try to take a shot and win the game, and we'll go from there. But OKC, even in overtime, just kept doing the same thing over and over again. It was isolation after isolation, and they bricked every shot. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue I have with OKC. They did the same thing in game one. It's why Denver came back. Besides the fouling fiasco, the possessions they ran were not very, I'd say, crisp at the end of regulation in game one. So the same thing in crunch time in game three. That's the problem I have, because Joker is the best player in the world, and if you let this team hang around, they will get better looks down the stretch of games, pretty much guaranteed. Even though Joker settled for a pretty bad fadeaway three-pointer, 10 regulation, 2 seconds left, but they got away with it in overtime. Dagnall, I think, has been horrific in 2 of the games in the series. I thought he was good in game 2. You can argue Denver rolled over in game 2 because they were playing with house money, and they knew they already got what they came for, which was stealing back home court. But I think that the Thunder have problems. I would still pick them to win the series, but their late-game offense is extremely problematic, and the fact is they've won a bunch of games this season in blowout fashion. And in close games, they are not as battle-tested as Denver is. And right now, that specific environment is definitely showcasing a comfortability issue for Oklahoma City, while Denver's thriving in that environment. So that's why I think OKC has problems. I would still pick them to win the series because they're better than Denver. But it is a pretty alarming flaw with a 68-win team. Do we agree on that?
Yeah, and I mean, it's just that, so I don't think the offense was an issue. I mean, they didn't run any. Like, they didn't run anything.
That's a problem, yeah.
It was literally just, okay, let's ISO and let Shea do what he does, which is fine. I mean, works out, most of the time, but and he only went to the free throw line 5 times. And that's the second time that he had under 10 free throw attempts, which, I mean, it seems like a lot for the average player, but he gets to the line double-digit times. And, I mean, I thought he was bad. I thought they were pressing a little bit to try to hit the knockout punch. They were up 3, up 4 a few times. And instead of, getting into the flow of the offense and kind of working the ball around, kind of the things that got them, to the point where they were comfortable in the game, they went away from it. And I thought they were trying to hit home runs instead of singles. And I thought that was indicative of some coaching things. I mean, the timeout thing, like you mentioned, it's debatable depending on what you prefer. I mean, I don't really care about the timeouts as much. It was
mostly just based on the flow. The issue I had with the timeout was the fact that your offense looked that bad for almost the entire fourth quarter.
And that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
You figure you want to at least reset or give your guys a breather.
That's fair. Yeah. My thing was I just didn't just give the ball to J-Dub. He was doing whatever he wanted, and we talked about the foul thing. So we know that Shea, draws contact and is seeking out contact. So he's less likely to get that call. So if you give that ball to J-Dub and he's able to attack, or he had everything going. He was finishing at the rim. He was finishing in the mid-range. He was finishing from 3. If you allow him to kind of attack the dribble, maybe call for a high screen and roll, get downhill. Maybe you get Shea, in rhythm, and he gets to that mid-range and hits that shot. So I just didn't like the putting the ball in Shea hands, like you talked about, the dribble for 8-9 seconds and then just heave up a shot, which he probably was fouled on. They're just not going to call it in that specific scenario. So, yeah, I mean, they'll learn from it. I hope
they'll learn for it. They didn't learn from it in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, but game 1 was more indicative of just coaching. I would blame the coaching more so than the players on that one. But I get what you're saying though. I get what you're saying.
I do think at the end of the day, when you're looking at the Thunder, even the J-Dub 3-pointer that he made, the one you're talking about, with about a minute and a half to go, minute 50 to go, that was also a broken play. Mm-hmm. Dort shot a ball. I think it went over the rim. It wasn't even close.
Yeah,
they got a rebound, and then it was basically it was a last-second scramble at the end of the shot clock, and J-Dub buried a shot. They were horrific offensively down the stretch, and that's why I would have burned a timeout. Even if I subscribe to the philosophy that you should always try to draw up a play, because more often than not, when you let the players play, you take a crappy fadeaway jumper. Usually how it goes. Always you could try something different.
Yeah, that's fair.
It just seemed like Dagnall froze, the team froze, and the lack of experience or even leadership was apparent because nobody seemed to actually want the ball. And even Shea, who had the ball a lot, really didn't look comfortable. And I feel like that was one thing that kind of, I'd say, stood out to me. I don't want to spend too much more time on this because we are going to break down game 4 in a second. But the point is, I do want to always mention that I thought Dagnall was bad. in 2 of these 3 games.
Mhm.
OKC's late game offense is extremely problematic for me, and they might get by in the series, but damn, they got to figure it out. That's all I'll say about that. Moving on to the other game from the Friday card. Not going to spend too much time on it because a healthy Cavs team is a top probably 2 team in the league, and everyone played. Garland was horrible for most of the game. Hunter was full of energy. He couldn't really shoot because he has 9 fingers, but you ended up seeing Mobley play insanely well. I thought Mobley was, if you want to make an argument including defense, the best player on the floor. I know Mitchell had 40 plus, but I thought Mobley was incredible the entire game on both ends. And I thought that he was really able to just impact a ton of shots at the rim, blocks or even just no blocks. He impacted a ton of shots at the rim. But Cleveland responded. Indiana finally lost a home game. They can't guard Mitchell, who had 40 points again. He's averaging over 40 in the series 3 games in. We're going to talk about this game in a second for game 4. I'll ask you though for game 3. I didn't spend much time on it because I thought it was pretty straightforward. We picked Cleveland to win. I still have Cleveland winning this series. I said I thought Cleveland actually might run the table and win the next 4 games in this series and win in 6. If they're healthy, I think they're better than Indiana. And Halliburton no-showed the game. You have anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, not really. I just would credit the defense. I mean, they played extremely well defensively, and you just see that you can see the weight being lifted off of Mitchell's shoulders. I mean, despite him dropping 40, everything opened up a little bit more because you had Evan Mobley with the spacing, so it's only Jared Allen in the dunker spot. You had Garland, another ball handler who was able to, although he wasn't as effective as he normally is, just the threat of him being a threat to drive off pick and rolls, to hit a jump shot. He hit a few jump shots. I mean, he's not 100%, probably not even close. But him being able Donovan not being able to dribble the ball up the court, initiate the offense, get the ball back, score, then go down and play defense, like that is tiring on him. And although he did have those 40, I thought that was an easier 40 than what we saw in game 2, simply because of the gravity and the things that all 3 of those guys possess. And this is the first time us seeing them like this since the I forgot what game it was in Miami, which, I mean, that really didn't matter. But Indiana was not prepared for that.
You can merge all the games against Miami. They were all basically the same, weren't they?
Yeah. So, I just feel like that those guys are just, I mean, obviously 3 of the top 5 guys being out for anybody is detrimental, but those guys coming back just adds another dynamic. And you saw, even though Jerome didn't play particularly well, you saw Strus play well. I saw Merrill hit a couple of threes. Even Okoro played well defensively. Like, all of those guys go back into they're slided back into their original roles, where you're getting a lot more production off lower usage. And that's the great benefit of having a good bench. So credit to the Cavaliers. They did a hell of a job in a must-win situation.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be a must-win game, obviously, for Cleveland, not wanting to fall behind 3-0. We thought they'd respond because they are an elite team in my eyes, in our eyes, and they did. They came through. So nice job by them. Now we got to segue into the game today. I know that we're 18 minutes in. Apologies if you wanted the game breakdowns, but it's only 2 games, so we got some time. Celtics, though, also, like the Cavs, were down 2-0, and they had to respond. And like the first 2 games, they went up a ton very early. However, unlike the first 2 games, they did not choke. In fact, the game was never close. Boston dominated the entire way through. Tatum was okay. He wasn't great. Made a bunch of threes early, though, which I thought was important for him. Pritchard was great. Thought he was a nice spark plug for them. Brown, I thought, was okay. But it was mostly the Knicks just being horrible. They couldn't hit a shot the entire game. I like the Knicks team total under in the game. Thought Boston's defense would definitely shine. It did. Brunson had 27 points on 21 shots. He wasn't that great. Cat at 21-15. He said he might have broken his finger midway through the game, so we'll see how Cat's finger's doing. OG had 2 points. He was terrible. Bridges had 12 points, but at the end of the day, the Knicks just didn't get enough offensive production. Pritchard had 23 off the bench. Horford at 15. Tatum at 22. Derek White at 17. It just felt like a team effort where Boston had everything going early. We were waiting for the three-point variance to kick in a positive way. They shot 20 of 40 from 3. So the bricks definitely worked themselves out in the end, just based on the law of averages, as we saw a bunch of makes in this one. At the end of the day, if Boston hits 50% of the threes, nobody's going to beat them. It's just how it goes. They just
even 40%.
Nobody's going to beat them if they hit that many threes. So there's really no way the Knicks could win that game if you're going to shoot that well. But Boston, we know, has dominated about 95% of the games in the series, and they're down 2-1. The Knicks have series problems, even though they're up 2-1. I said it about Cleveland. It's why a lot of people were talking about how unpredictable the playoffs were and how any team could win the title. I see no world of the Knicks win the title. I just don't think they're good enough. Just simple as that.
They're not.
We're going to talk about Game 4 at some point later on next week, but I'll put it this way. If Boston won the next 3 games of this series and 1-6, I would not be surprised because the series in a certain world could have easily been a sweep. So I think the Knicks, once again, are a very, very gutsy team. They play with a lot of heart. They never give up. But in terms of talent and in terms of offensive game planning, they are very, very underwhelming. And Boston, when they make their shots and they don't choke away 20-point leads, is by far the much better team. So I was not shocked by Game 3. I thought Boston would win. I thought they'd cover. I like Knicks team total under. That got there as well. Anything surprise you in this game? Because people kept talking about how it was the biggest game for the Knicks. They've been terrible at home in the playoffs for about a year at this point. I'm not surprised the Celtics buried them. You?
Honestly, I thought it would be a lot more competitive, and then the Celtics would pull away late. Like I thought it would be maybe like 6 or 7, with maybe like 7 or 8 to go, and then the Celtics would hit a couple of threes and put it out of reach, maybe win by 13, 14. But it would be a competitive 13, 14, and not just a runaway kind of like this one was. And the Knicks just kind of added on a little bit late to make it look better than what it really was. I mean, I was disappointed in the Knicks' effort. I mean, it didn't look like they looked like a team who was up 2-0 and they were like, hey, we got 4 chances to win 2, and we got 3 of those at home. So, whatever. I didn't like the lack of energy. I didn't like a lot of the things that I saw. Mikal Bridges was like in the air, passing it back. And I mean, credit to the Celtics defense, but
Him and Anunoby were I know Bridges at 12 points. It felt like they were absolute zeros.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were when they were up 30 at the time. And like, I just didn't like the effort. I mean, I know, and Tibbs you don't usually see that from Tibbs teams. He talked about the 3-point variance. I mean, the 3-point variance is always going to be the highlight of any game that's involving Boston. But I thought they just did. I mean, the Knicks haven't defended the 3 well this whole series. It just so happened that Boston, wasn't making them, and they still almost beat them if it wasn't for 2 collapses. So, I mean, I just didn't like the effort from the Knicks. I thought it would be a little bit more competitive than this, but I did think Boston would win. I mean, credit to the Celtics. They really, I thought the threes that they took were off of sets and not isolations, and that was the biggest difference. You saw
they had a ton of wide open looks off penetration.
And you saw the
basket.
Yeah, you saw the double staggered screens with Tatum as the ball handler. You saw JB being inserted into the middle of the I call it the nail spot where he's kind of navigating, and you see Talav. They got out and they were running. So credit to them for adjusting their game plan and getting out and getting a great win. But yeah, I think that confidence is going to roll over to Game 4. But I didn't like the effort from the Knicks. I really did.
Yeah, I mean, they got punched in the mouth early. It's what you have to do when you're supposed to be in a very hostile environment. Take the energy out early. Yep, Cleveland absolutely. Then they blew it. Then they eventually went up massively again. The Celtics, though, were up 20 immediately, and the game was over at that point. So the Knicks, at the end of the day, I think we all agree are not as talented as Boston. You're looking at Brunson, who has to carry offensively. Cat, we know, can be inconsistent. He also might have a messed up finger now, so they got problems. But I think Anunoby and Bridges can have big moments. But Bridges, besides a couple fourth-quarter flurries, has been terrible offensively for pretty much the entire series. So Boston just has more scoring depth, and I thought that Boston's looks were very, very wide open. It was not a fluky 50% from 3. They had a bunch of wide-open looks the entire game. And the Knicks have given up some open looks, too. Tatum missed a shot in the corner in Game 2. Brown missed a shot at the top of the key. They just missed some open looks. And 3-point variance came back in Boston's favor. We'll see how the Knicks respond in Game 4. But a nice job by Boston making this a series again. Anyway, I know that we spoke a lot about the previous games. Apologies there. But either way, time to move on into the games for the Sunday card. Before we get into the actual games, though, a reminder that you can find the new line of merch that we have on the merch store with the DGen line of gear, which is available. And to celebrate that, we are taking out 20% on the merch store for everything with the promo code DGen. So once again, if you want to get something on the SGPN merch store, use the promo code DGens to get 20% off everything in the merch store. We're also brought to you by Circa Ultimate Fantasy Football Giveaway, because Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas is giving away the ultimate fantasy football experience for a 12-person league to draft their once again, fantasy draft in Vegas and be treated like VIPs for your stay. 2-night stay at Circa Resort and Casino for the entire 12-person league. Hold the draft at a cabana, a stadium swim with a $5,000 food and beverage credit. Limo transportation to and from the airport. Welcome party at Legacy Club for the league. Reservation at the World Tour Sportsbook for $500 with a $500 beverage credit for the league. Contest duration is from May 5th to June 30th. Sign up at sportsgamepodcast.com/circa, sportsgamepodcast.com/CIRCA. We're also brought to you by Edge Boost, the first ever bank bill for bettors. They're ensuring that all gambling transactions are approved. No usage fees, no imbalance. Also earn cash for rewards. 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet with the promo code SGPN and a great, I'd say, limited time offer. Deposit $25 and EdgeBoost will match deposit. It's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy because they just launched a new game mode, Game Ladders. So a reminder that you can use it to potentially win up to 500 times your money. Watching your favorite players climb the ladder. Sign up with the promo code NBSGPN. Get a special pick and first time deposit offer up to 1K more cash on fantasy. Promo code NBASGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the NBA Game Podcast. Finished going through the recaps of the games on Friday and Saturday. Time to move on to the two games on Sunday. The same two games we ended up seeing on Friday. You have the Thunder and the Nuggets going at it, as the Thunder are laying 6.5. And just a reminder, the Thunder for the actual schedule will be the early game. This is not a typo. They are moving the Western Conference game to the early slot in the afternoon, and then the night game will be the Cavs game. Thunder, though, laying 6.5 off of the overtime loss that we saw in Game 3. For the Nuggets, though, they keep finding ways to win, and the over-unders at 227.5. Now, the Thunder, we saw have a lead in all three games, and they're down 2-1. Nuggets, though, keep showing their championship mettle and their mental toughness, and Adelman's done a good job with this team. Defensively, they've been great, especially against OKC so far, besides Game 2, where they kind of just no-showed the entire game. I'll ask you, though, for this one, I know it's basically a must-win game for OKC. They could come back down 3-1, but you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to ask you right now, do you think OKC, first of all, should be favored by 6.5 after the loss in Denver last game?
Yeah, I agree with the line. I mean, I think it opened 5.5 in Game 3. So, and just a little bit of, I guess, must win. I put that in quotations.
Motivation.
Yeah, for the Thunder, similar to what we saw with the Game 2 bump. We saw it was an even bigger bump because it went from 9.5 to 11.5, or 8.5 to 11. So similar bump here, except for it's just on the road. I mean, obviously, I think it's warranted with the way the Thunder did not execute down the stretch. That easily could have been a 7 or 8 point win for them, and they just didn't execute down the stretch with their offense. The one thing that Dagnall needs to do a better job of is, okay, I understand that it's the NBA. You're not going to shut everything down, and you rely on some guys to beat you. But you can't, you got to switch your coverage to Aaron Gordon. He's playing too well. He's been playing like this the entire playoffs. You can't – basically, he's doing what P.J. Washington did to them last year in this round. He's doing exactly what P.J. Washington doing. They're daring him to beat them, and that's what he's doing. He's hitting timely shots. He's in the dunker spot. He's playmaking. He's got so much in rhythm that he's pulling up three on a 3-on-2 fast break. He's pulling up shooting threes, and he's making it. I mean, that's the type of player that Aaron Gordon is. I mean, he's a great role player, and I think they got to shift the coverage to him to make him uncomfortable and make those other guys beat them. I do not expect Michael Porter Jr. to play like that again. I'm sure he was on some of the finest.
He was so damn good.
I'm sure he was on some of the finest.
He had no idea where he was, but he had a hell of a game.
Yeah, he played well, and that's credit to him for fighting through that, because he had not been good for the past few games. So credit to him. And I just think the Thunder are going to make the necessary adjustments. I do think some of those shots will start falling. Shea will get to the line a little bit more. He was getting where he wanted to. I mean, just not knocking down those shots. J-Dub played extremely well. I need to see a little bit more from Chet and Hartenstein. I know they're doing a ton on the defensive end, but maybe a little bit more on the offensive end from both of those guys. They were in sync a little bit, but then you saw Chet was at the free throw line, and he was in between, do I throw the lob to him? Do I throw a bounce pass? I think if you reverse that and put Chet in the dunker and Hartenstein at the top, Hartenstein's a little bit better playmaker out of that spot. So I expect the Thunder to make the necessary adjustments. I don't expect the Nuggets to play nearly as good as they did. Joker, of course, is going to do what he does. But, I mean, I know that it's hard to say with him scoring or having that 40 and 20 game. But the Thunder, they've done a really good job on him. They've done a really good job of making him work and tiring him out. He's frustrated. He's arguing with the refs as much as I've seen him argue with the refs.
To be honest, I think he argues with the refs all the time, but people don't really talk about it. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
I get what you're saying. He's frustrated. He's not getting enough calls, but he always argues with the refs, to be fair.
Yeah, so I think they're doing a great job on him, despite maybe what the averages will say. And I think they'll continue to do that tomorrow. And I'm taking I'm laying the 6.5 with the Nuggets. I think we see a lower scoring game. It barely got over it.
You mean with the Thunder? You're laying
Thunder. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm laying it with the Thunder. But it barely got to the over. I know we'll speak on the over under, but I like the under as well.
Yeah, so I like the under as well, too. Denver has to make the game ugly. That's why the game, even after overtime, still went under in Game 3. And I do want to point out, by the way, because I do see a stat here. Do you want to guess, in terms of percentage, what percentage of time the Thunder have spent leading in this series?
I'll say 12%.
I'm saying the Thunder have been winning. What
percentage? Thunder have been winning. I would say like 88%.
82.7%.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Denver has been leading for 11.7%.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
And yet they're up 2-1.
Yeah,
this whole series feels like the exact same thing as the Lakers-Nuggets series like a year or two ago when Murray just caught fire in the fourth quarter and had a couple of game winners. Same premise. The team just finds a way to hang around and just outplays you in crunch time. It's kind of what they do. But I think I prefer the Thunder early in this game. I don't trust them in the fourth quarter. It's kind of like Boston all over again in a way. But I think I'm just going to back them early. I think the Thunder have to get off to a fast start. I trust their offense early in games. It's when the game slows down to a crawl in the final 6 minutes that I have problems with how they function isolation-wise with Shea, with J-Dub, etc. Give me the Thunder first half in this game. I don't mind first quarter. I like that angle for Boston in the game today as well. That worked out easily. I think the Thunder will be up at halftime by, if I had to guess, like 7+ points. The question is, will they choke it? I don't know. And I don't really want to find out. So I'd rather just take the first half if I had to go for an angle here. I hope that the Thunder, we saw Shea smiling at the end of the game. We'll see if that turns into a meme or if that turns into a type of, a moment that's kind of going to build on the aura that Shea already has. But I think for this one, give him the Thunder early. I like the under in this game, though. I see a low-scoring game, and I think it's going to come down to the wire. But I think if I had to go for the actual, once again, angle, I'd rather go for the Thunder early, respond to the gut punch like they did in Game 2, come out, punch him in the mouth, go up early, and we'll go from there. So that's what I got for this game, and I'll go with the under as well for this one. Moving on, though, to the second game on the card. Do you have anything else you want to add, by the way?
No, I don't. I'm good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So moving on to Game 4 between the Cavs and the Pacers. Cavs, like the Thunder, are favored on the road. Makes sense. The road teams won every damn game, basically, in all these series, except for Denver, who's been actually winning at home. You have the Cavs, though, who are laying 5.5. Road teams won every game in this series, and the over-under's at 230.5. Now, the Cavs, we saw, respond very well. They were up by 20 points on basically two separate occasions in this game, in Game 3, and they were able to coast. Mobley was incredible. Mitchell was incredible. Halliburton was an absolute ghost the entire game. And it felt like Indiana, you mentioned effort. The effort I thought was kind of there. Just felt like Cleveland was better at every position.
I agree.
So I think Cleveland wins again. I think Cleveland wins the series in 6. So I'm just going to take Cleveland to win every game.
Yeah, I like Cleveland here as well, and I think that's big that you brought that up because I pointed to the Knicks' lack of effort and their loss in their Game 3 loss. The Pacers played. I mean, that's one thing that they do. They play extremely hard, which is surprising because the Knicks play extremely hard. I think you brought that up as well in the breakdown. Like they play hard, and the Pacers they just couldn't compete. I mean, Tyrese was bad. Siakam was okay. Miles Turner was banged up a bit as well, but I thought maybe Nembhard,
Turner was the best player.
Yeah, he was. And he was banged up. I thought Nembhard, Nesmith, I thought those guys scrapped and clawed. Even got some Ben Shepherd minutes, a big 3 to end of the first quarter. But I just thought the Cavaliers I thought Atkinson did a really, really good job defensively with that 3-2 zone. He mixed in the 2-3 zone. He put Evan Mobley at the top, which is what led to those steals and those blocks because he's able to help off the backside whenever they swing it. Because obviously the wings are the weakness in the 2-3 or any kind of zone. The wings in the middle of the floor. That's why they try to get it to the middle floor and then they play 3-on-2. But he did a great job in that 3-2 zone, mixing it up with the 2-3, kind of keeping them off course. And it's like, for whatever reason, it's like the Pacers never seen a zone. They just stopped moving the ball, turnovers, live ball turnovers, more importantly, that led to the Cavaliers getting in transition, which they are deadly in transition. And some of the offensive rebounds that they were allowing, the Pacers were allowing was it was crazy. So I think the Cavaliers imposed their will once again. I do think the first half, I'll probably look that in my lock and dog section, but I do think the Pacers put up a good fight. I think this will be a more competitive game, but in the end, I think the Cavs pull away and maybe win by 8 or 9.
At the end of the day, there's still one serious issue. I know you mentioned the Cavs defense switching into a zone. Indiana only scored 104 points. On the other end, this team just can't guard Donovan Mitchell. Like, there's just nothing they can do. Mitchell's walking into 40 every game. I'm not here supposed to win if you're giving up 40 points to the other team's best player. And now you have Garland, who came back, who I thought was pretty bad in Game 3, which is understandable. But the point is, because he ended up playing, you got less Jerome minutes. Thank God, because Jerome was terrible.
He wasn't good in his minutes either.
Garland had 4 fouls in like 10 minutes of playing time in the first half. And it's like, all right, what the hell are we doing here? And then it didn't even matter because they ended up winning anyway. But Garland, I don't think, can play worse than that. And they still ended up dominating. I thought Allen and Mobley did a great job on the boards. They out-rebounded Indiana, by the way, 56-37.
Yeah, it was
an ass-kicking. Indiana's starters, I believe, scored less than 50 points in the entire game. Actually, no, they scored 54 points in the entire game, the starters. And every single starter for Cleveland had at least 10 points. 4 of the 5 had at least 18 points. So it really comes down to the bench units for Indiana. But it's also a problem because it means your starters are getting killed every time they're on the court against the Cleveland starters. Cleveland, as far as I'm concerned, based on talent, I think is so much better than this Indiana team. The only question is, will Indiana be able to limit turnovers, and will Halliburton get going and become the offensive engine we know that he can be to help keep this Cleveland defense off balance? But I really do like how the zone defense also willingly slowed down the tempo Indiana wants to play with. Besides the fact they didn't look that comfortable against the zone, the fact is when you get everyone back quickly in transition defense and you play a zone, you have to be very methodical about it. You're not going to typically give up many immediate three-pointers in the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. They forced Indiana to work long possessions, what they don't want to do in the half court, and Cleveland controlled the tempo, which they needed to do. And I feel like Cleveland, even though they tried to run and gun with Indiana, had some success in that in Game 2 before choking, I do think they're better off in the half court. Their defense is much better than Indiana's in the half court, and I think that's the blueprint for success. But for me, Indiana, I think, is – I'm not going to overreact to one game, but I do think Cleveland is, for a reason, the number 1 seed. It's because they are really, really good at basketball, and Indiana relies a lot on Halliburton, who can be streaky, who can kind of turn invisible at times, but Mitchell has been the best player in the series by a mile, and when healthy, I think Mobley's the second best player in the series. So you're going to give me one team with, in my opinion, the 2 best players on the court at all times. I'm going to take them to win this game. So I got Cleveland -5.5 again. Thoughts on the total? I know that game 3 went over barely, but it was mainly because of the really ugly 13-point quarter the Pacers had because they didn't know what to do against the zone. The game exploded, though, in the second half, but I'll ask you want the over because of pace.
Yeah.
A part of me
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A part of me is considering the under, but maybe just Indiana team total under. Because I don't think they can guard Cleveland. But I think Cleveland can actually guard this team. So I don't mind Indiana team total under.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I think both teams will be able to score. I think the Pacers will be more they'll put in some stuff for that 3-2 zone. And who knows, that might be something that, that Atkinson doesn't break out right away. It might be something that he goes to in certain situations because he didn't play it for like an entirety of, a half or whatever. He picked it up in certain spots and that limited the transition. And one thing that I also noted that he did was to limit the Pacers getting out in transition. He was not crashing a ton of guys to the glass. Like it usually crashes 3 or 4, but it was only like whoever, most of the time it was Jared Allen and then maybe Evan Mobley. But the rest of those guys, the wings and the guards, they were getting back and trying to prevent that fast break. And I think a lot of that messed with the timing of the Pacers offense because they are a timing and rhythm offense. And I think that kind of messed with Tyrese as well because he wasn't able to get out and find those slashers and do his little hopping and step back. So, but I think both teams will be able to score, man. Like I said, I think we said this from the beginning. Like I'll be betting this over every single time until something happens where they prove to me that they can constantly stop one another or just off sheer volume alone. I think the Pacers will play a lot better, and I'm expecting maybe high 120s for both teams. Well, high 120s for the Cavs. Maybe a team 125, 110-ish. That's what I'm looking for.
I'm fine with that. I think at the end of the day, you're looking at what should be, in my opinion, you're looking at the team totals being around like 117.5, give or take, for Cleveland, 112.5 for Indiana. If they keep playing this zone, I'm not sure Indiana gets to 110. So I'll go with the team total under for Indiana in that one. Once again, I'll ask you, though, because I brought it up. I know Halliburton's had a very memorable postseason. a couple of duds being saved by really good clutch moments in the fourth quarter and overtime in some games. But if I asked you right now, when healthy, who's the second best player in this series, Mobley or Halliburton, who would you pick? Because I might actually take Mobley for his impact defensively.
Yeah, I'm taking Mobley as well.
So just throwing it out there. Halliburton, I know, is going to be an All-NBA guy. He's, of course, had a great season, great postseason in terms of memory. But
yeah, he can't do what Mobley do. He can't do what Mobley does defensively.
That was the concern that I had, though, for Mobley, was because you figure with how bad is the injury if you're going to miss a playoff game.
He looked great, man.
He looked like a gazelle. He's flying up and down the court. I'm like, all right, you can't stop this guy because he's going to patrol the middle. He'll be able to help you on the boards. He can finish in traffic. He can also shoot a bit from the outside. They don't have an answer for Mobley. They don't have an answer for Mitchell. I have issues with this defense. So I'll go with the Cavs with you, but I am going to go with the Pacers team total under for my play in this one. Anyway, I do want to ask you, Lonte, because we did break down both games pretty quickly, actually. You have anything else you want to add, or should we just move on into the lock and dog plays?
No, I'm good. We can move on.
Cool. So before we get into the lock and dog picks for the show, reminder, they're brought to you by Rhythm because they are the home of ADVERTISE picks and brawls, also available for the NBA playoffs and the MLB prop market. They also have the WNBA. If you want to go over some player props, they might go over a season. But remind you, you can also build your own model. Very simple and easy to do. You also can try it out for free for a week by using the 7-day free trial. But when you go to Rhythm, they have two amazing discount deals. One is a 50% off deal. One is a 25% discount deal. 25% for each month. Monthly subscription with promo code SGPN25, 50% off the annual deal with promo code SGPN50. That's Rhythm, promo code SGPN25 or SGPN50. Sign up at the, once again, link, sportsgamepodcast.com/rhythm for a 7-day free trial. We're also brought to you by MyBookie. Because MyBookie.ag is placed in every sport. They have the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, they have baseball, they have UFC, you name it. A couple title fights tonight if you're interested with Shevchenko and if you're interested in watching Muhammad fight. You have any interest in UFC or not a UFC guy?
I'm not a UFC guy, but I do enjoy it, and I have some friends who handicap it and who send me their plays, and they're really profitable. So I enjoy telling them.
I used to do some
I have no idea, but I have no idea about anything.
I was going to say, I used to do some YouTube videos for UFC. I haven't done any of those in a while. I still follow, but either way, I have some action already for the card tonight. Point is, though, if you do want to get on the action and you also want to bet on props, then you can do so with MyBookie because they have props in every game. You can also use it for a ton of locations. Also use crypto for easy deposit and fast payouts. And a reminder, when you do sign up for your new account, use the promo code SGPN to get a 100% deposit match up to 1K. Terms and conditions by MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the NBA Game Podcast. Finished going through the two games on the Sunday card. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. To be honest, a pretty tough act to follow for us together. You had an episode in between. We got everything right on the episode for the Friday game, so we'll try to repeat our performance in that one. I'll ask you, though, first, Lonte, what's going to be your lock and dog for the games on Sunday?
To be honest, I'm the lock that I wanted. I don't really see it, but so I'm gonna have to try to pivot here. I will tell you my dog. My dog is gonna be Indiana first quarter, plus 130. I think they
really
come out
Indiana with first quarter. I didn't see that come.
Yeah, okay. And I also like the Indiana halftime, Cleveland full time, as well. But Indiana, I think they'll come out with a lot more energy. Cleveland they're gonna come. I think Cleveland is still in the position where they know that it's going to be a longer game. They're not going to come out as hot as they were. Even then, in the first quarter, Indiana came back and they fought back and tied the game. So they're capable of doing that. So I think Indiana comes out a little bit more assertive. I think Tyrese Halliburton will get going a little bit more. So I like Indiana +1. That's plus 130 at FanDuel in the first quarter. I'm gonna tell you my lock from that same game was going to be Evan Mobley steals and blocks over. But
it's at 2.5.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. Yeah, I want that over. I mean, I just think that he is in that position. I know they might not play the zone as much. And I think the zone was implemented to kind of keep those guys from because they haven't played in a while. So they keep their conditioning a little bit, under the radar and to help trouble. Right. And to help Garland not be able to move on that toe as much because obviously, they're going to try to hunt him in those pick and rolls, and him being at the bottom of that zone, he's not moving a ton. So I think Mobley's activity at the top of the zone, just along with his help side defense. And we know that Indiana likes to take those mid-range jumpers, and he's there with the contest. And in that zone, he's able to steal the ball off deflections and things like that. So over 2.5 steals plus blocks. I think that is one of my favorites. I've been betting that every single game that he's played throughout the playoffs. And that's been pretty profitable for me. So I'm going to take that to the bank as a lock.
Yeah, so I saw that at -105. So if you want to get that,
love it.
I think that was Bet365 that
love
had that. But either way, I had the steals. I can't believe I got half a steal at -125 last episode. That was an absolute gift. So I appreciate that. But for my lock, I think I'm going to go with relatively, I'd say, straightforward. I'm going to go with a straightforward approach here. I'm going to go with the Cavaliers just to cover the spread. I know I've been doing well in props recently, but I am going to branch out a bit more. I see a 5 actually on DraftKings at -110. Hell yeah, I'll take the damn 5 at -110. I think that this team's much better than Indiana. And the argument that you're running into is, well, Indiana lost last game. They're going to show some effort. Apparently, home court doesn't matter for any teams besides maybe Denver. So I think Cleveland's the better team. They used his own defense, which worked. Mobley's healthy. I thought Hunter actually played well energy-wise. Couldn't shoot, but I thought his energy on the boards helped out. Garland was really bad. Didn't matter. But you're looking at Mitchell, who walks into 35-plus every game. Mobley's been great. The zone also neutralized Halliburton. I think Cleveland is really, really good. And they should be up 2-1 right now. They choked away game 2. But I do think Cleveland, at the end of the day, is just finding some answers to the Indiana puzzle. And I feel like Indiana's lost. They won 2 games, I get it, but they won playing at their own pace because Cleveland self-destructed. And Cleveland went out of their way with Atkinson to disrupt the tempo that Indiana wants to play at. I like the adjustments they made. I like Mobley's presence on both ends of the floor. They have a lot of size. They won the rebounding battle handily in Game 3. I can see that happening again here in Game 4. Give me the Cavs -5 at -110 as my lock. For my dog, I thought about maybe going with I don't know if I wanted to go for a prop or if I wanted to go for an actual game line for this one. I thought about maybe doing a quarter play, but I don't think I'm going to actually do that. For my play here, what do I want to go with for this one? Okay. You know what? Maybe I'll actually just bank on what I was talking about before. I mean, do I think Dort has even a decent game offensively? Because I was tempted to take his under, so like for an alt points line.
I figured you were.
There. I thought about it. But you know what? I think I'm going to go back to what I ended up doing last. Actually, do I want to go with Jerome, actually? Do I want to fade Jerome? Jerome shoots so much, though, when he's in the game, which is really frustrating. Okay. You know what? I'm just going to go with my instincts here. I think OKC, after losing Game 3, I'm going to bank on them to jump Denver early in this game. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma City, and I'm going to go with the first half. I'll go with the first half spread here. And I'm going to go with an alt spread. Give me OKC first half -6.5 at +145. I think they jump them. I think they go up early. They might choke late. But I do think they'll be able to show up with a purpose here in Game 4. I'll go with that as my dog. So apologies, I took a bit longer than normal to actually get to that conclusion. But for my lock, give me the Cavs -5 at -110. For the dog, give me the Thunder first half -6.5 at +145. Now it's time for the underdog entry for the show. Lonte, anything jumping off the page to you?
To be honest with you, man, not much is jumping off the page to me. I do think that Shea has a really good bounce back game, so I like his points. But that's the only one that I absolutely will be betting. I mean, and I don't know if you want to recycle the Mobley steals and blocks.
Yeah, I had that already loaded. I wanted to make sure Underdog had it, so they have that at 2.5. We'll take that. As the first option.
But I like Shea. Nothing else really nothing. I mean, you know what? Benedict Mathurin points higher. He was he's got some juice to him, man. He was talking and breaking up handshakes. I love Benedict Mathurin. I love his competitive fire. I'm not sure he's going to be there much longer. To be honest,
he's a bit too good to be a bench player on that team.
He's got some shit to him.
Yeah. For the record, his points I see on Underdog at 13.5.
Sheesh.
For the record, he has had 19 plus in each of the first 2 games. Or in each of the last 2 games,
Your call, man. You made a good call the last time, so.
Okay. I'm wondering if I want to pivot to threes instead. Because he attempted 8 threes last game. I'm wondering if I want to go for that, but now he can get downhill too.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, we'll just go for points. We'll go with Mathurin higher, 13.5 points there. And for the last option, a part of me wants to go Hartenstein because he had 10 points and he bricked so many free floaters. He airballed the one over the rim in overtime.
He had 2 bad ones.
I know he did. But the point is he's still getting looks. Like he's open.
That's fair.
I feel like that's worth something at 10.5. He finished
Okay,
with
that's
10
good.
despite having that bad of a game. So I'll go with the higher on Hardenstein points there as well. So the 3-pick entry we're going to go with for Underdog, we're going to go with Evan Mobley, higher 2.5 steals and blocks. We're going to go with Mathurin, higher 13.5 points. And we'll go with Hardenstein, higher 10.5 points as the 3-pick entry for Underdog. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We'll be back once again, not on Sunday. A reminder, we are back to normal schedule there Monday morning for the Monday games. Lonte, anything else you want to add?
That's it, man. Best of luck tonight with your action. I know me and Real did an episode already. Got home the lock, missed on a dog by like 4 points. I forgot what Real's lock and dog was, but yeah, we're halfway there, 1-1. So hopefully we can get some winners out tomorrow for this show.
Yep, looking forward to it. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.